to this session. I'm Ganesh Saili. I am an author photographer. I live up here in Mussoorie, and this is a nice thing during this pandemic that Niyogi Books has made this virtual book club, and I am going to discuss the work that I have done for Niyogi Books. This is my first book, Mussoorie Medley, which I did a couple of years ago. Then there's, of course, another one which was more gossipy. It's like a book of Chinese whispers. And then the book that I am going to talk about this evening is this one on Garhwal. It's called Garhwal Himalaya, and I hope you can see it. It's called Wanderings in Garhwal. It is a tribute to my father, who was a 16-year-old boy and took off like a part of the male exodus that leaves the mountains of Garhwal, our home in the Himalayas. So at 16, he decided to. This is where he set off from Garhwal. The bus head was at Devprayag, long way away from my home in Chamoli district, on the road to Badrinath. And my father left the village like all young men do, did in his days anyway, and he set off, got the bus to Rishikesh. When I look back in time, I see my father standing as a young boy, strapping young lad, standing there at the bus stop in Rishikesh. He had very little money in his pocket. He was hoping to make a fortune somewhere else. And so he was standing there at the bus stand and he was looking at this, that billboard that you have on the side telling you how much it costs to go where. And he found the cheapest fare was to Mussoorie. And so he bought a ticket and bought us a ticket to paradise. And this is where I have spent a lifetime reading, writing about this 19 square miles of home that I have written about. And when I look back in time, I this book is an offering to my ancestors, and I hope I have made them proud in writing about them, their sufferings, the way their life was. And anyway, my father came up here and he found himself a job, and he settled down here and raised a family. I grew up here, went to school here, and this town, if you talk about it, is in has been very special for creative people. Very special for creative people. Dates back to 1838 when the hill station was just a teenager, and you had Fanny Parks. She wrote about these little boys going to school. Our first school, the Mussoorie Seminary, and after that, it has become home since 1838. It has been home to creative people. No matter which way I look in town, I find creative people. Probably the highest density of creative people anywhere. You can begin with movie stars. You have Victor Banerjee, the star of David Lean's film Passage to India, and of course Ghore Bare. And he's the only actor, I think, who has worked with the three living greats of Indian cinema, Indian and international. He worked with David Lean, really a genius in his own right. You have him working with Satyajit Ray. You have Victor working with Roman Polanski in Bitter Moon. And he is the actor's actor. And he is like way ahead in his own field. Then you have Tom Alter, who grew up here, went to school here, made a name for himself in Bombay. And you have Vishal Bharadwaj, who's the latest entrant here, whenever I saw him the other day after his quarantine period was over, he was walking alone in the night, quietly with no one on the road. I was driving past. We said hi, and Vishal comes up here whenever uh, he's trying to write and find space to write. You have Anyway, to go back in time a little bit, you go back to the Masonic Lodge. That is where I saw the three writers of the three guides to Mussoorie. You have John Northam was the writer of the first guide, 1874, Guide to the Hills of Mussoorie. Then you have Frederick Bodycott. He wrote another guide to Mussoorie. And then you have F. Wilson, who wrote the Mussoorie Miscellany. All writers have to go back to these three books. And I found these three together, even after they're gone a long time, on the board of the Roll of Honors of the Masonic Lodge. And you have other people, of course. I mean, the one and only treasure that this town has, he's like a banyan tree to all of us, is author Ruskin Bond, author Stephen Alter, author Bill Aiken, and all of these are people who live up here and write about, hopefully, this little town. The others who come and go, there was Arvinda Diga. He did The White Tiger up here when he was finishing it. Then you have Anita Desai, who was born here, and very little claim to that because she was just born here at the local Landau Community Hospital. And you have last chap I met was Prajuli. He was up in Sister Bazaar, and he had hired a little cottage, and he was staying there. And he said to me, he said, Ganesh, I can't stop writing. In 1 month, I finished more than I do in a year. So there must be something special. And as a friend of mine, an old Mussoorie boy, Shiv Sharma says, he says, it's either in the water, check with the municipal authorities, or it's in the air. And I think it's in both our water and the air and the place. It's a special place where creative people do find an outlet for their creative energies, be it in any field, whether it's cinema or in writing, they will be there. There's Christian Karat, there was Nandini Kumar, who was here. She's done a book on short stories for Amazon, won a contest at the young age in her 20s. And you have Christian Karat, the Swiss author. He does a lot of writing up here. He's just gone back to Switzerland, but Christian is the new entrant in town. And these are people who live up here and write about these mountains, these hills of home. And this is where I am fortunate enough. I feel like a thin filling in a sandwich of all these writers to the left, writers to the right, and it just carries on. And this book that I did, my Gupp and Gossip, was born because Bikash Niyogi said to me, he said, you keep talking about these people, why don't you write about them? I said, sure. And I wrote a book which is gossipy in a nice way. It doesn't pull people down. It's not a patent place. It's not yet patent place, too small for that. But I wrote about these people who are characters in themselves, and with a bit of luck, I hope I have been successful. I find I've been told not to read, but I will read a little bit that the irrepressible friend of mine, Vinod Mehta, wrote about my book in 2012, and he said, I'll read it to you. He says, whenever I escape to my modest cottage in downmarket part of Mussoorie, I make it a point to spend an evening with my oldest buddies. He says, Ganesh Saili, I got to know much later. And he, like Ruskin, is a treasure trove of information of things big and small in sleepy Mussoorie. You'll be surprised how much gossip, most of it reliable, floats around the queen of hill stations. And Ganesh knows the best of it. Gossip mongering, I've said before, can be hugely relaxing and entertaining if you're in the right company. All that talking is to plug for Ganesh's recently published Gupp and Gossip in the Hills, Niyogi books, which contains everything you wanted to know about Mussoorie, but were too afraid to ask. And, that's what Vinod wrote for me. The book has done well. And I think it's about time I got down to writing another one. And readers and friends and listeners, those who are watching this show, just wait. My magnum opus is on its way. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much.